It's time to listen to two very grouchy old men talk about technology and the latest and greatest in news. I think I have all of our channels brought in properly. Let me double check this real fast.
Sure.
We've got the Facebook channel, we've got the YouTube channel, we've got the other YouTube channel. We got too many channels, John, and the Code It Live channel. Awesome. So it looks like we got everything, all of our ducks in a row. Let's talk some news, John. This
Yeah.
is now Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. Um, we should have them do an intro every week. It's just that's what should happen.
Yes.
Technical difficulties. Let me get this screen off my screen so I don't do a hall of mirrors, and we'll jump straight into the news.
All right.
This is one of your favorite topics, John, but this is an article that I picked. It's the
such
good
a
old
waste of money.
such a waste of money.
It's such a waste of money. Why are they spending this much money? Ugh,
It's the hack your face,
I know.
hack your
Stop
face
hacking my face.
concept. Facebook gonna drop $10 billion on their metaverse concept.
Great.
They want to be known as the metaverse company now. They're flirting with the idea of changing their name. Many people will argue that it won't happen. Maybe they'll do a alphabet umbrella company thing, something, but they are looking to rebrand themselves for many reasons. You know, anybody out there know any other reasons they might want to change their branding? they've been in other parts of the news lately. Let's just say that we won't get political, but they've been in the congressional side of the news lately. So anyhow, they're dropping a ton of money into this. They have a big hiring spree going on. I think a lot of this was happening in the UK for some reason. I didn't get into the article on why over there they're hiring so much, but it looks like they're going to be doing a lot of hiring.
Okay.
So anyway, big investments coming. For a fact that they've got big investments in Oculus. I hear another Oculus is coming. I've been reading different articles about the Oculus. Looks like they're going to be taking the VR part of the Oculus and starting to slowly transition that into AR, which I think is really awesome. So this metaverse thing, if anybody's going to pull it off, I think Facebook's going to be one of the companies to do it. I think it's going to take many to get there.
Good. Well, good luck to them.
Good luck to him, John. That's all the commentary John has today.
Yeah, I have nothing to say.
Good luck to him. And somehow I ended up at the end of our list and started working
Okay.
forward. So we'll
All right.
do this to get out of the habit. Another fun topic that I'm sure you have a lot of insight on, John.
Oh God.
Photoshop is going to drop an NFT tool within Photoshop.
Great.
So you can, instantly print money from within Photoshop now.
Sure. My cat photo will be worth millions.
And I'm missing the comments here, by the way. This is
Oh yeah, we're getting trashed, dude. We're getting totally trashed.
There's about Facebook having a VR baby and punishing it.
Sure.
But anyway, Photoshop getting prepped for some NFT action. So it's like it's in the same realm as like blockchain and cryptocurrencies and all of that good stuff. So you'll be able to basically take your images that you create in Photoshop and print an NFT, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around how all of this works, because there's like this digital authenticity angle that's being played here, but it doesn't really necessarily stop you from copying the picture. It just gives you I guess I'm not an expert on this, but I'm thinking it gives you a blockchain route of who actually really owns that photo outright. So you can then sell these things as an original owner of that content.
All right. I got nothing, dude. Nothing. I
This
don't
is
know
the
why.
Stump John show today.
No, it's not. It's just this stuff resonates like a zero on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of interest. Zero, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. This ranks about -5 for me. I really don't care.
Oh man. Yeah, I still am trying to figure out where this fits in my life too. I think that's the more political way to say it, John.
There's a
John's
lot
little
of things that don't
straight
deserve to
dump
be in
on it.
my life. So
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So at least I mean to mint an NFT now, you need like some third-party apps to run against your object that you're trying to NFT.
Okay.
So this gives Photoshop users a way to do this directly from Photoshop. So
All right.
that aspect of it, I think, is cool. Whether NFTs have legs to grow and actually be a real boy someday, that's yet to be seen. But this gives it legitimacy, I would say. If Adobe is giving it a direct tool within Photoshop, I mean, Photoshop's like the industry standard pretty much for any kind of digital design, graphics wise.
Mhm.
Adobe in general, maybe not Photoshop, but generally it's one of their many products. So I mean, if it's not Photoshop, it's Adobe Illustrator or um, some other type of image program. So
Yep.
anyhow, it's definitely a big sign of things to come. So keep your eyes on that one. This must, we go from like
Now,
this.
now we're getting into
Is
stuff
it,
that I like.
is this futuristic crap even viable in my life? Down to a John article that is
Sure.
some standard versus another ISO standard. What
Yes.
what are we talking about here, John?
Well,
Quite a
there's a
shift
lot
in
of ways.
gears.
I know, but look, I'm a developer. I care about developer things, and parsing dates and times is a developer thing that we do all the time. And there are a number of competing standards out there. These are the two sort of canonical ones: the RFC 3339 and ISO 8601. It's been ratified a few times as well, and there's a variety of different format strings that you can use.
Mhm.
There's some agreement on what can be done in terms of parsing relative to the spec. And then by mutual agreement, there are, yeah, I know. And then by mutual agreement, there are a number of 6-digit years that they're adding support for, and apparently you have a driver to install. So, anyways, the nice thing about this is you may not have noticed this, but the actual dates that are going in there are live. So as you see them ticking away, you can see the different representations of them. And then further down on this page, it actually does a comparison of what the format strings look like. So if you've ever been wondering, like, how the heck did I get this format string? You can scroll down, you can see the ways in which they're actually formatted, which is actually, always a fun thing to do. Incidentally, there are a number of languages that don't have built-in support for a number of these things. Standard libraries, surprisingly, for things like Python, don't have standard library support for this. So you actually have to use a third-party library for some of these things. But there you go. So yeah, always fun stuff. Look,
Fun,
let me put it this way. For a
We have
very long time,
different
we
definitions of
suffered.
fun.
For a very long time, I will make it personal. I suffered for not knowing how the heck these things are formatted, right? You would
Mhm.
scour the docs, you'd find maybe one page where a developer took his time or her time to write the stuff out. And now it's like, okay, it's getting a lot easier. The kids these days, back when I was a kid or when I was younger, I had to parse days walking uphill in snow both ways, right? So, yeah. So, anyways, there's that. So
How was it parsing date times on
dates,
an
yes,
abacus?
that's right.
uh, at least you were starting closer to zero, John.
Sure, sure.
Um, so David Pine and I were talking about something similar to this the other day because we were working with some JavaScript interop code that we were discussing, and JavaScript uses a certain format for a timestamp that is completely unrelated to anything in .NET. So we were looking at ways to get that translated into, to serialize
Sure.
into .NET from, I think it was the geolocation API. So it's like if you're going to interop with Blazor with C# into JavaScript and get this date stamp back, what is the proper thing to turn this into? So there were a couple different approaches that we used. And there's many different ways to do it. So we casted it to a date, and then .NET understood that date. You could also cast it to a decimal and then do some finagling in the .NET code. That, these things do come up pretty regularly.
And then there's of course localized versions of this like star dates as well. So
there we go. I'm trying to find the correct hotkeys here to keep moving through our articles. I want to full screen because I kept getting pop-ups coming up over the UI here.
No worries.
GitHub stale bot considered harmful. What is the stale bot?
So it's one of the options you have in the marketplace when you are running a repo and you're installing things from the marketplace like GitHub Actions, etc. One of the things you can install as an app is what's called the stale bot, which basically marks an issue as stale after a certain time period. Typically, it's about 30 days.
Okay, yeah, and I'm on.
What? Sorry?
I'm on par with you. I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just an opinion piece. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't use it. I mean, if you feel like it's a valid case for your repository, sure. However, I think that there are some good points made in this article, which means basically like you really should reconsider using Stalebot. The reason why is because Stalebot will automatically lock and close issues that come up. So it's one of those things where I wouldn't say considered harmful is appropriate. I would say a better way to describe this is, it shouldn't be recommended. It should be, just a normal app on the marketplace.
Yeah, I tend to agree with the harmful side of this. I think these, as a developer advocate, which is my role here at Progress, these type of bots that close user feedback are very impersonal.
Yes.
And I find
then you get a sense of you don't feel like you're part of this repo, and
right. You feel like if it's the case of open source, you feel like the community that's driving it isn't listening. And if this is the case of a paid, commercial thing, even though it's on GitHub, it could still be a paid commercial thing. Then you have a feeling that company is just not willing to listen to all of the problems that are there. And I've run into this on, it's not GitHub, but another thing. I think it's powered by user voice. I don't want to call out the exact experience I had, not to throw anybody under the bus, but you post issues here, and then if those issues don't receive so much traffic and so much time, this thing comes in and just automatically like closes your issue. And part of it was, people don't explain the issue the same way every time. So you have like duplicate issues all over this board.
Sure.
And the bot's like closing them because they're not getting enough attention. But if they were all consolidated into one problem, then it probably would have gotten enough traction.
Yes.
So these things can get, they can toss out a lot of good feedback inadvertently. So I
issues
agree with the content.
Yeah, issues aren't by themselves a bad thing. They can be unwieldy at times, especially if you get lots of issues. Like I've been to repos with 5,000 plus issues, right? And there you get a sense that, okay, this is not being maintained. Excuse me, as I sneeze. Excuse me. So there's that issue, and then also it can become almost a full-time job, because these can break out into discussions. These issues, they can foster ideas and things like that. So it is understandable why you might want to automate some of this, but the Stalebot in itself really doesn't provide a lot of value. If anything, they should tag it as stale as opposed to closing it. But whatever.
Yep, it kind of feels like a signal of we don't have enough time or manpower to address these things, so we're gonna let automated things clean it up. Which I think again goes back to my point that it makes it, even if you are listening, it still makes it feel like you're not. Wow, this is a lot of.
I know.
This is modern web for you.
Yes.
Sure.
This wasn't
Okay.
this one isn't so developer oriented, but I thought it was interesting. Uh-oh, you've frozen. All right, well, I'll just read it then. Hertz order for 100,000 EVs sends Tesla value to $1 trillion. So basically, the rental car company Hertz has apparently ordered all these cars. Oh, you're frozen, Ed, but I can hear you.
Oh, am I?
I can't hear you. Yeah, there you go. Now you're back.
Okay.
So there you go. So this is a massive deal, I think, for electric cars. I'm a huge fan of electric cars, and I think that obviously we've got to get to them as quickly as we can. And this is a vote of confidence, I think, by Hertz, which is a massive car company, to Tesla, and this skyrocketed obviously Tesla's valuation. But yeah, I know that a lot of folks that care about electric cars, especially developers, because they're kind of cool. So
Yep.
yeah, I thought this was an interesting article.
Yeah, and Tesla is going crazy in the stock market lately too. They made big headlines the other day of hitting the $1,000 mark per
Yeah,
share. So yeah, they're definitely going to be a force or if they are already, I guess you could say they are a force in the car market with that kind of valuation.
sure. Speaking of Photoshop,
Yeah, speaking of Photoshop, and we were just talking about
yeah,
how John's going to mint a bunch of NFTs next week. What's going on
that's right.
in the Photoshop web journey here, John?
Well, what's really interesting is Photoshop is for the longest time, people have often complained, like, listen, I think when Silverlight came out, people were like, this is a great win for like the apps, and they can finally bring their apps to the web, and we all know how that turned out. But with technologies like WebAssembly now, it's getting actually quite real. So Adobe has announced the public beta of Photoshop. You can see it at photoshop.adobe.com. And this is a breakdown of some of the technologies that allowed them to get to a beta of Photoshop. So Adobe's been on this march towards, making this available. It actually makes a lot of sense because maintaining installations and managing all that stuff. I mean, Creative Cloud. If anyone who's a Creative Cloud subscriber knows, the even the management tool from Adobe itself isn't all that great. I have it, and I'm not really a big fan of it. But managing those app distributions can be a
Hmm.
challenge. And so what they're looking to do is obviously bring that to the web. And so yeah, WebAssembly and technologies associated with that allow some ability to do that now, because obviously these are high intense CPU, GPU intense operate operation. Sorry, you're jumping around.
Yeah, sorry,
And
I
so
was
yeah, no,
trying to
that's all right. And
organize
so yeah,
the segue here.
oh, okay, yep.
So
So
I
yeah,
have an article or a video that has some value to add here.
okay,
So, like it says here, when they exported their platform to WebAssembly, they used Emscripten.
yep,
This is quite a popular tool
yes,
that uses C++ to cross compile things to WebAssembly. And I don't know if they still use it. I have to circle back and ask some folks and see if they're still using it. But this is how they got the .NET platform uh, converted over to WebAssembly for Blazor. So this Emscripten tool is
yes,
what allowed Blazor to happen in the time frame that it did. I think they moved to something proprietary, but again, I have to circle back and verify that. But they basically used this tool to
yep,
get that going. So it looks like they're doing the same thing here. Another thing that they ported with Emscripten that's a pretty big deal is and sorry, I've got to play your favorite thing here
yeah.
to
Okay,
talk
here we
about
go.
this, John. It needs to be said. It needs to be said. Um, so they ported the Doom engine with
Of course,
Emscripten as well, and you can actually, and I'm not talking about like the old school Doom. I'm talking about like the modern Doom. Uh, that's like a you know high end 3D AAA game. Um, which what when was that released in the 2000s? Basically, more modern than the old school Doom 2. This is like the remake of Doom, so you can play
sure,
that actually in the browser, and
yep,
it runs at um, 30 plus frames per second in the browser, depending on your hardware, but it does the same thing that this is doing. It uses OpenGL, WebGL, and those things to draw directly in the browser. So that's pretty cool. Looks like they experienced some debugging
With
with
Chrome.
these
Yep.
tools with Chrome. So WebAssembly is really making some, some leaps and bounds here. And to see Adobe Photoshop running in the browser, I mean, that's pretty impressive. I wonder
Yes.
what the speed is like. I didn't see that kind of outlined in here. We didn't have time to really read this in detail, but
I don't think they're breaking it down at that level just yet, but that's why it's a
yeah,
beta. So
it looks like there's something about performance, but it's nothing that we can really kind of gather how fast this is running. But generally, with Emscripten and WebAssembly, the rule of thumb is it will run at 70% the speed of how it runs on a native device.
okay.
Like that's kind of relative speaking. Like on my machine, if I ran this app natively on the hardware and then I ran it in the browser on the same hardware, it would be 30% slower in WebAssembly, which for all intents and purposes isn't like that big of a sacrifice
Yes.
to get it off of a desktop installation and onto a web. That's the cost you're paying to webify that product. But I
Yep.
mean, 30%, it's not it's not something you could ignore, but it's not huge either.
Mm.
So speaking of this, John, great article. I love this type of stuff.
Sure.
That brings us to today's, and it's very blurry. It's not coming in here, but very topical ASP.NET community stand-up. So this is still talking about WebAssembly because we're talking about Blazor. Now, instead of recompiling something to make it WebAssembly, SkiaSharp had, well, I guess, no, it still isn't that order of magnitude. They compiled SkiaSharp to WebAssembly. And if you're not familiar with SkiaSharp, it's a .NET library that allows you to do graphic manipulation, draw directly to the screen. They use this for Xamarin to draw like certain components that aren't supported by the native OS. So, for example, like a button is something that's natively supported on both iOS and Android, but maybe like a chart or something isn't. So you might use SkiaSharp to draw this chart on iOS and Android, so you get the same UI experience on both devices. They compiled this to WebAssembly, and now that Blazor has native interop with WebAssembly, meaning you can go directly to another WebAssembly compiled library without having to jump through too many hoops. You can natively interop with these other platforms that are other softwares that are compiled to WebAssembly within Blazor. And what they were doing on the show here is they were drawing with WebGL in a Blazor frame using this external library that was SkiaSharp. So WebAssembly is really opening up some new doors.
Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome stuff. If you want to check that out, that was the .NET community stand-up. They have a lot of shows on this channel. But if you just drop .NET Community Stand-Up in a search on Google, you'll bring up their homepage with all of their shows. So this is the .NET teams talking about what the latest things are that they're working on, the community's working on. Usually the show starts much like ours with a lot of links that they share about the topic that they're going to present on. And this is what they did today. So make sure you check them out.
Cool.
Speaking of coding shows, I did want to give a shout out here to some friends of ours that are starting up a Twitch channel as well. So they've actually been at this for a month now. So if you haven't gotten over to see the Rocket DevRel team on Twitch. Make sure you drop over to them and check them out. They're actually in chat right now too. So Rocket DevRel, feel free to drop a link in chat there so people can easily find the show and click follow there. But one of the most recent ones was a recap of the
versions 1 to 9.
1 to 9.
That's awesome.
1 to 9. Yeah, that is really awesome. So that was Jason Bach on his stream.
That'd be a long stream.
Let's see if I don't see where it says how long it was. I think it was just over an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. Hour and 3 minutes. So I imagine there's a lot of overlap between some of the versions, but if you're interested in the history of .NET, which is something we covered on this channel before you and I joined, John, Alyssa, Layla, and Jim were all on talking about the history of .NET and all of the crazy things that have happened just in the .NET realm.
Yep.
So if you want to continue that conversation, jump over to the Rocket DevRel channel and see the history of C# here with versions 1 through 9, right? So great stuff there, and good luck to the Rocket DevRel channel. Make sure you give them a follow.
Blazing through these.
Yeah. So Next.js 12.
Yes. Anyone out there doing any React development will certainly know about this, but Next is basically a React framework. It provides a whole bunch of tools for doing things during the compilation process. There's a bunch of things that you get out of the box with features. There's like a routing system. There's built-in CSS and Sass support, all kinds of extensibility throughout, pre-rendering, static generation, server-side generation, all the React stuff that you normally would be accustomed with, but it does a really good job of providing a foundation for building these things out. And Next.js 12 is basically the evolution of that model. They've made some relative improvements here. The big one is that they swapped out Webpack for SWC, which is a really fast web sort of compilation engine, and can greatly improve your test runs, especially if you're on TypeScript. So yeah, this is sort of like a canonical tool that you'll want to use in the context of a React app. So yeah, lots of stuff being added there.
What was that tool again? That SWC? Yeah. So this is I was actually looking at this while you were talking at the beginning.
So it stands for Speedy Web Compiler. If you go to swc.rc, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we actually talked about this on the show before. So it looks like it's being rewritten in Rust.
Yes.
And that has gotten them some big speed improvements, which is really cool to see. Rust is one of those things that the community keeps chattering about, and I think it's gonna be one of those techs that sneaks up on us and everybody's using it. It seems to be pretty cool. It's interesting to see the shift again with the pre-compilers in the JavaScript world. I'm wondering if I haven't ever used this SWC. One of the things that was always a sticking point with Webpack was the configuration of it was always super difficult.
Yep, always fun. Always a good time with the Webpack configs.
So I'm wondering if this alleviates any of that. I haven't used it yet, so I'd love to hear from chat if anybody's using it, how it compares to Webpack.
It does have configuration, obviously. Any compiler would. So there are configuration settings. It's more, if I remember, more JSON oriented than say JavaScript oriented. Like Webpack is very JavaScript oriented, as opposed to just a description language, which is via JSON. So yeah, there are some subtle differences there. The config file, it depends on what part of SWC you're talking about. I know there's a bundler as well, which is the part that Webpack typically is part of, and that is definitely oriented more towards the JavaScript side of things. Meaning that when I say JSON versus JavaScript, obviously I'm aware of the fact that they're interchangeable in some respects, because you can put JSON as just an object description. But typically, when you talk about configs, it's like, what does the general config look like? Is it just a
Yeah.
description via JSON, or is it more JavaScripty? These are technical terms you don't need to worry about. So yeah, that's what the bundler tends to look like more often.
Yep. This is a great pick, John. This is an article by CSS Tricks about the new quote new CSS reset. So should we give people a primer on what a CSS reset is if they
Oh
don't
God,
know what that
sure,
means?
sure. Yeah, so resets are fun. They tend to I guess the best way to describe them is like, listen, we got to have a baseline of what we think everything is, before we go ahead and do anything. And so resets have they come in all kinds of flavors. They basically
Mhm.
set canonical values for certain parameters and things that you would typically find, padding and so forth, because the browsers vary accordingly on these
Right.
things. So I
Yeah.
haven't heard
So
about this
like,
new CSS reset though. So
yeah, Safari is one of the big outliers in this stuff. So you've got like Chrome, Firefox, IE, which is also Chrome. They all have like these baseline configurations of padding, but more importantly, like input components, like
oh yeah,
generally have a lot of styling around them.
yeah.
So you might add some styling to those things. And if you don't reset them first, they may look wildly different from one browser to another.
But
Maybe
also
even
because of the fact that
look
it's
broken.
cascading, it
Yeah.
can get tricky, right? Because it's like if you start from the wrong base and you start applying values that are relative, then you
Hmm.
get different outputs.
Yeah. So a reset will help you get kind of to an even playing field. So
Yes.
when as you're building up your own custom style, you're completely overriding the ones that the browsers have provided. Usually it's getting some little nuance of like Safari or something out of your UI, so you can put your own skin on something. But it looks, these things evolved over time, and Rocket DevRel here is talking about like the Eric Meyer reset. That's probably one of the more
Yep.
popular ones.
Yep.
I think that's the one I use as well. I usually pull those in either off a CDN or just copy paste. Um, but this is using more modern like CSS3 to
Yep. Yep.
target things, so it reduces the file size a bit. I mean, you could see it fits on a screen here, and I think like the older CSS reset. Here's the Eric Meyer one right here. I wonder if it shows in the yes. You can see
Yeah.
this has probably been refactored a bit since the last time I saw it too. It's really pretty short as well. But these used to be, as browsers get more standardized, these things shrink too. But as the language gets more robust to describe what you're trying to do, they also get shortened. Like this new where clause is a brand new CSS thing that is now kind of ubiquitously supported in the browser. So you have like this where parentheses not where it's not an iframe, a canvas, a video,
Yeah. Yeah.
etc., or an SVG, then it's going to do some work on those items. So this shortens things up quite a bit, and it turns into really just 5-6 statements, and you've got a reset. So that's pretty handy.
Nice.
Nice. It looks like Chris Mars is talking at Connect Tech, which I'll see you there in a couple of weeks, my friend. He is going to cover some of these new keywords in CSS in those talks. So looking forward to that. I will, if I am still in town while you're giving your talk, I will definitely come see that. I need to learn a bit more about those. JetBrains. So let's cover this first, and then we'll circle over to JetBrains. This came with a lot of drama. I'd like to
Oh
stay
yeah.
away from the drama parts, and we
Okay.
could say there's drama, but let's
We'll need a new
we'll
theme
keep
jingle for drama.
we'll
Like
stay we'll
a
we need
as the
the
world turns.
Ron Burgundy like stay classy, like that's where we need to be on this. So hot reload, it went back and forth over the week.
Yeah.
Started what, Thursday or Friday last
It started
week?
a while ago. Yeah, and then it got
But
picked up,
yeah,
and then like anything, it picked up traction. So
Yeah, so here's the originating blog post, October 20th. So it's a couple days this transpired. Wednesday of last week, there was an update from the Visual Studio team. Dimitri, I feel bad because I, don't shoot the messenger on some of these things, folks. Like, be cordial with the engineers that have to deal with these type of announcements. They talked about updating the hot reload in Visual Studio. And when you got to the very end of the article, the long story, the TLDR here was things were a little bit behind as far as features go. They were placing more focus on the Visual Studio versions of the hot reload. And then there was kind of this somewhat mysterious bit about it being removed from the CLI completely.
Yes.
And originally I had thought that this meant that they were, shifting gears a little bit and putting a little bit more dev effort into the Visual Studio projects. And it wasn't quite ready for prime time with the command line. So they were going to, pull it out for future release. But it turns out that wasn't what was happening. They were pulling it out completely. It was not going to be released even in the future when Hot Reload got to be, mainstream on all the Visual Studio products. It still wasn't going to come back. And it left kind of like this, this bad sentiment with the community that, the Microsoft of old was taking back the reins to make things, proprietary technology, pulling away from open source. And, there's a lot of amazing people within the org like Scott Hanselman and Scott Hunter that have worked extremely hard to get the community where it is with the open source aspects of things. There was also some drama with .NET Foundation, and all of that led to just like a really bad week for
that's
the
one
folks
way to
over
describe
there.
it. Yeah, relative to open source, Microsoft has not had their best day.
Yeah,
that's the best way to put it. But these things can be easily fixed. Do the right thing, and then move on.
So once again, those same people, I imagine, this is a lot of folks inside, not just the two that I mentioned. There's a lot of people in the .NET teams that support open source and listen to the community and provide feedback to folks higher up that aren't as directly in touch with developers as they are. I think they went and pled their case en masse to management there, and it looks like they were able to overturn this decision to pull the tool out of the .NET release. And
so the system worked, is what you're saying.
The feedback loop worked, yes. So
correct.
There are some really fantastic people in that group that went up to bat for the community, and they won. So this is a good thing. I think we need to kind of accept that there's people there that are willing to go out of their way to make sure they can right these wrongs. And they did that. So that's good. So hot reload. So the short of it is it was out and it's back.
Now it's been hot reloaded.
It's been hot reloaded. It is back. So we can all
Which is a good thing. We want hot reload.
And then, of course, JetBrains is like, hey, if you just use Rider, we've got hot reload too. So I thought I'd drop this in there for them. They implemented their own hot reload, so they weren't relying on the one that's out there. They went ahead and made sure that they were safe to go ahead and roll their own. So they have hot reload in Rider. So if you're using Blazor and ASP.NET Core, check out Rider. They've got some hot reload functionality built in there as well. And, there's multiple tools out there to get the job done, whether using the .NET CLI or Visual Studio or Rider from JetBrains, you can get your job done. I believe JetBrains Rider is also multi-platform too. So, if you're on Mac and Linux and those type of things, I believe that works for you as well.
Yes, it does.
It's kind of an uncomfortable and odd segue. Open Silver, more Microsoft. This time they didn't really pull something out of developers' hands. This is kind of a long time thing coming. The support for Silverlight has ended. They've been telling people this is going to end for quite a while now.
Yep.
And it finally has been, given the funeral procession. So Open Silver has announced that 1.0 has arrived, and this is as Microsoft and support. So this is an open source implementation of Silverlight, so people can continue building applications within the Silverlight realm.
Okay.
I'm not a Silverlight dev, so I'm not sure exactly how this all works, but this is looking to help people transition from their Silverlight apps to this open Silver software. So if you're a Silverlight dev, you're still doing Silverlight, and you refuse to let it die.
Yep.
If you've got your Silverlight code in one hand and your Windows phone in the other, and you're clutching them tightly, this is the software for you. So make sure you check them out. Another good video and personality to check out. I'm sure you probably already know Sean Wildermuth. If you don't, he's got a great video out on his YouTube channel talking about Tailwind CSS, and the video is kind of discussing the point of the framework. And I guess there's always different parts of this community, developer community in general, that there's several tools to get a job done, and then there's, of course, like usually I'll write it from scratch crowd.
Yes.
He's kind of giving you the gist of what exactly Tailwind CSS is and who it helps and why you should use it. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with it at the end of the video. It just means like, here's I'm going to inform you on the pros, the cons, and what's the target audience for this thing and why should you use it, and you make your decision from there. So it's really well worded, well done video, only 20 minutes long. So if you haven't learned about what Tailwind is exactly yet, or maybe you've got some preconceived notions of what it is, just watch the video. He'll give you the highlights of what it's great at, and you see if it fits in your toolbox or not. So
one thing about his background there is, which is interesting, is you can tell, this is how old I am, I can tell what some of those books are, and I can tell what some of those awards are. I think that's Essential Com by an A-Press. That's design patterns next to it. Windows 98. It's fuzzy. I can't make them all out. There's an MCSD exam study guide. There's all kinds of things in there. So yeah, you might be a developer if you recognize those things.
Sean Wildermuth is like old school .NET royalty. You know what I mean? I mean, he's been in the business for a long time. I mean, look at the let's see.
Yeah, the MVP award.
The MVP award
over 10 years.
It's like, talk about Stack Overflow, right? Like, this is in every essence of the word.
Yeah, they got a bad design there. So
he needs to refactor that thing. I mean, that's amazing. Amazing achievement. He's a really nice guy too. I've met him in person before.
Yeah.
Fantastic Pluralsight author. But anyway, I wanted to promote his video because this is a topic that I also talk about here and there. I'm not a user of Tailwind, and I just wanted to kind of brush up on some of the talking points that he covered, just to make sure I was on the right page. I don't think I'm right 100% of the time. I always question my own judgment on this type of thing, and I try to keep an open mind about these frameworks. And I'll probably get asked this question at conferences, which are starting to be a real thing again. And I don't want to misinform people to either go towards or away from Tailwind without understanding what type of developer they are, what they may use it for, and cover all the points that he covered. So now this is kind of a cheat sheet for me to help inform those people. And of course, I can always refer them to his video when they ask me these questions. So thanks to Sean for making such a good video. And then we got, I swear, Chris DeMars, you changed your from Rocket DevRel to your own persona here just to drop the just don't use Bootstrap in chat. I love you, man. That's it's too good, dude. We will chat about Tailwind and Bootstrap when we are in Atlanta. That will be a conversation to be had. So finally, John, last article we've got here on the list. If you're a .NET developer, make sure you check out crosscuttingconcerns.com. This is a blog by Matt Groves. He's a dev advocate over at Couchbase, and every year he does this really cool thing with the .NET
Advent
community.
calendar.
He does an Advent calendar. So Advent is, just like you'd get when you're a kid. You open it up every day, and there's like candy inside, or some kind of little toy or something. In that same respect, there's a blog post for .NET on every day from December 1st until the 25th. Something in line with the .NET, C#, anything in the .NET universe is on this Advent calendar. It's always well presented, and there's really awesome people that sign up for it. There's actually gonna be 2 posts each day, which is something I think he started last year.
Yep.
This is 5 years running now. This is like
yeah, it's good idea. I like it.
Mm-hmm. So you can see people are already signing up in this list, including yours truly.
Nice.
But these little packages will open up starting December 1st. You'll be able to just binge on .NET content for 25 days.
Nice.
And it is really awesome. And look at the bookend here. I mean, you got Michael Jolly at the end, saving like the best for last. Calvin Allen is in there. These are all people that I absolutely love following their content as it is, and now I've got them all bundled up in one post. DPF, David Pine, is that who you're talking about? We need to let David know. I don't see his name in there yet, but there's still a lot of open spaces too. So if you are in the blog mood, jump into that C# Advent calendar and sign yourself up. But yeah, look forward to that in December. So we've got about a month away before that's going to actually start getting posts. Can you believe that, John? A month away? Just a month?
I can believe it. I've looked at the calendar. It's clearly a month, and so I can believe it. I love how people like, the summer's almost over. Can you believe it? I'm like, yes, it's been warm for a while. Now it's getting colder. Therefore, it's entering autumn. So I can believe it. So
yeah,
just a weird expression I've always had in my head. I'm like, why do people say that? Can you believe it? I'm like, yes.
So I'm central. I'm like mid part of the US, like here in Kentucky, and like we're supposed to get like all 4 seasons, right? We've got the nice warm, hot summer. And they're all like equally spaced out, spring, winter, fall, all that good stuff. But every once in a while, and it depends on how the year plays out. Like we get these weird things. Like this year we had like a spring that lasted halfway into like midsummer. So to pay the earth back for that nice extended spring we had like no fall. So we went from like 80 to 90 degree weather to it's going to be like freezing tomorrow. Why not? Where did fall go?
Basically did put the thermostat and just put it right to 0, basically.
Yeah, it's like no fall for you. It's going straight from summer to winter overnight. Like deal
Perfect.
with it.
Yep.
This happened like a couple of years ago too. It's not anything that's brand new. Probably could be a climate change thing. I don't know, but it's definitely
speaking as
happened.
a Canadian, speaking as an expat Canadian now living in Australia, two probably the most extreme places in terms of weather on the planet.
Yeah.
I find your stories of weather amusing.
I'm sure, and insects as well. I'm sure. Like, oh, the spider was this big. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
those are food for our spiders.
That's right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
One more announcement to make here too. This isn't actually an announcement, maybe a teaser to an announcement. Tomorrow is going to be a release of some sorts here at Progress Telerik. So
Ooh.
keep your eyeballs peeled for our Twitter channels. And I should have a show around 10 a.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time. Depending on how our launch goes, that should be on time. And I will cover in the launch on that show if it is something I can do.
I have one question. Is this
Yes.
is this an upgrade to an existing product, or is this a launch of a new product?
I don't think I can answer that without giving too much away.
No worries. Okay,
Um,
good. Sorry, I didn't mean to
it
put you on the spot.
it is related to things that we do already. So it's not
Okay,
like
great.
it's a new thing, but it's not
Okay,
for a
that's all you need to say.
not for a platform we don't already deal with.
All right.
So it's not going to be like the UI for Metaverse
Stop
or
digging.
something
Stop
crazy.
digging. You're gonna get yourself in trouble. I don't
No,
want to get in
so
trouble.
this isn't like an AR thing, some wild. It's
All
going to
right.
be very awesome for the community, and
So
we're looking
Telerik
forward.
multiverse is not coming, is what you're saying.
Not it.
Too bad.
You're hot or not hot on that one. You're very cold. But before I
Okay.
give too much away, we'll quit
Yes.
messing around with that topic. But tune in tomorrow for
I
my
like it.
show,
Teaser.
and you'll find out what we're gonna launch tomorrow. And we'll have it on our Twitters and stuff too, social media channels.
Nice.
You can jump on and check this thing out. I can say it will be a free to use thing. How about that? So it's not. Yeah, they're not going to be charged for it. So I'm not advertising something tomorrow. You'll get to use it right away. So.
Yep.
All right, John. With that said, before I get canceled here, I'm going to say goodbye, and we will see you tomorrow, same bat channel. Take care, everybody.